Hello and welcome back to Responding to Human Trafficking for Pregnancy Resource Centers. This is Module 3, and today we'll look at identifying indicators. After completing this module, you will be able to describe common objective signs that a potential trafficking victim might have, recognize patterns of body language that warrant further inquiry, ask questions in ways that draw out information and reveal possible controlling factors, and understand the domestic violence component of trafficking. Your keen observation skills are constantly being challenged. Intake interviews with distressed clients can leave you second-guessing yourself. It's important to remember that we are co-workers together with God as we seek to serve His children. Study and experience can only bring us so far in this work. We need the discernment of the Holy Spirit. Then, at the end of the day, we rest in the knowledge that we've done all to the best of our ability. Looking for the signs of human trafficking is important, but signs are not determinative. That work is for the justice system. Our goal is to provide the best possible care for the vulnerable people that we see. The following common indicators, also known as red flags, are potential signs of human trafficking. Signs of physical abuse, signs of mental or emotional abuse, reports of sexual abuse, disorientation, not sure of the city or state, fearfulness, accompanied by a handler, language or cultural barriers, and not in possession of identifying documents. Let's look at some common indicators of labor trafficking. You might see malnourishment, as evidenced by poor overall health status, pallor, dull hair and eyes, dry, cracked skin and nails, broken skin, untreated acne, low energy or listlessness, and poor dental health, broken teeth or heavy stains and plaque. They may report delayed treatment or have evidence of untreated injuries. They may have chronic back pain, neck pain, cardiovascular, respiratory, hearing, vision, or skin problems from harsh working conditions or living conditions, or from unsafe exposures to toxins. They may report or have evidence of substance use, like needle tracks, unusual injection areas, inflamed nasal passages, or abnormal vital signs. Dizziness, headaches, confusion, memory loss, or cognitive deficits from traumatic brain injury or concussion are also possible. They may also show signs of abuse or scars that are inconsistent with explanations. They may fail to make eye contact or hesitate to answer questions. They may give limited responses or allow a handler to answer instead. They may not have any personal identification or documentation of their employer. Human trafficking is non-gender specific. Men and women, girls and boys, may experience sexual exploitation and a wide variety of labor trafficking. Let's look at some common indicators of sex trafficking. Domestic violence and commercial sex trafficking overlap and can go hand in hand, or they can mimic one another. Disfiguring injury or scars inconsistent with explanation are common among sex trafficking victims. Bruises, bite marks, burns, or branding, usually in the form of tattoos, often a name or insignia of the pimp or trafficker, or even a barcode, could be anywhere on her body. The victim may exhibit poor dental health and neck and jaw problems. She may have clothing on that is inappropriate for the weather. If your center is medical, you might see more signs. She might report multiple, persistent, or untreated STIs, urinary difficulties, or pelvic pain. She may request verification of negative STI results. Genital or rectal trauma may be present. Impacted debris to conceal menstruation may be present upon vaginal exam or ultrasound. If toxic shock syndrome is present, this may be a contributing factor. She may report multiple or frequent pregnancies, repeated abortions, and/or miscarriages, or complications from attempted abortions, or she may refuse to answer such questions. Let's look at behavioral red flags. Responses may be evasive or seem scripted or coached. She might be reluctant to explain injuries or symptoms, or explanations may be inconsistent. She may have a defiant, angry, or in-your-face defensive attitude. Hostility may be due to threats or misplaced anger. She may be confused or disoriented, which could be due to head injury or concussion, drug or alcohol use, or frequent relocation. She might be fearful, submissive, hypervigilant, or jumpy, especially when touched. She may have an unusual attachment to a cell phone with an obvious real fear of missing a call or text. Conversely, she might exhibit a flat affect, monotone speech, and be seemingly unfazed by serious circumstances or test results. This may be due to scripted responses, chronic abuse, sedation, or major depression. No eye contact, the big red flag. A complete avoidance of eye contact is different from a distraction or attachment to a smartphone. The client might fear reckless eyeballing, depending on the level of trauma they have endured. This term will be further explained in Module 4. Some trafficking victims are not allowed to make eye contact under threat of severe and painful penalties. If something about your client doesn't make sense, consider gently probing further. Trust your instinct. Find out more about your client and her situation in private. Do not attempt to ask her about her safety while in the company of anyone she came in with. You see clients who are in no particular distress and are perfectly well acclimated to the idea that they are pregnant, but you also see those who appear terrified at the prospect. For a wide variety of reasons, it's not unusual for a young mother to become distraught at the revelation that she's pregnant. She may exhibit obvious signs of stress, crying, complaining, or bargaining. Trafficked clients won't necessarily stick out like a sore thumb. Their experience may not look different without some probing. Their normal state is one of high stress. So is it stress or trauma? Almost 88% of sex trafficking victims came in contact with healthcare providers while being trafficked, and about half became pregnant while being exploited for sex, according to the study in the Annals of Health Law in 2014. Psychological trauma is the unique individual experience of an event or enduring conditions in which the individual's ability to integrate his or her emotional experience is overwhelmed, or the individual experiences subjectively a threat to life, bodily integrity, or sanity. Let's think about the body language of psychological trauma. A closed or tightly curled in posture, asymmetric posture, hunched shoulders, blocking movements with arms, legs, or full body, wringing hands or tight interlaced fingers, holding one's arms, pursed lips or clenched jaw, trembling, clenching, flushing of skin, darting wide eyes, swallowing, fidgeting, shallow breathing, minimal movement, freezing, far away sounding voice, avoidance, sense of not being present, rage, aggression, or terror. Although she came to you for help, she may not be able to provide the self-soothing relief of her trauma. Substance use or the stress of pregnancy may contribute to her emotional instability. She may use poor coping mechanisms or self-harm, lies, dissociation, and other inappropriate protective devices. You can apply what you've learned about red flags and symptoms of trauma to the intake process. What and how you ask questions will depend on your client's responses. Always go through the intake process in private. If she needs an interpreter, use your own, not someone she brought with her. You cannot rely on instinct alone. Traffickers can be very charming. They are able to convince people to submit to sell their only actual possession, their body. You probably already have some training related to domestic violence and how to develop rapport, how to ask questions without judgment, and which words to use and which not to use. Those questions will be helpful, but may not be asked in ways that reveal appropriate responses. Whether we know it or not, we all have our own biases that can impede our ability to appear receptive when talking about difficult issues like abuse. In order to be effective in our mission of caring for the lost and serving our community's needy, we must do some soul searching and resolve within ourselves to be compassionate with no expectations. Some clients simply aren't able to reciprocate. Focus on cues. Be sure you are looking at her when you ask her about her safety. Always be careful not to look at your paperwork or allow yourself to be distracted. She needs to know that she's the most important person at that moment. Look at her facial expressions and her physical responses as you ask her if she feels safe. Don't be generic. Ask if she's been hit, slapped, punched, or kicked by anyone. Depending on your protocols and her responses, someone on your staff should ask if she's been forced to have sex or suffered sexual assault. Her safety is more important than our comfort about the conversation. The Module 3 knowledge base in your course room includes a list of possible questions and their corresponding rationales. Depending on the level of trauma and the kind of trafficking suspected, you will choose specific questions that will draw out information for her to hear. If she is an adult, she will need to learn how to self-identify, and then she alone must decide to leave her situation. Your questions should be in the form and spirit of coaching questions, those posed for self-discovery. She has come to you because she either suspects she's pregnant or she is there for STD/STI testing, if your center offers those services. In either case, if you see the red flags of abuse, you cannot assume anything. She may be experiencing domestic violence. She may have been the victim of a simple sexual assault, meaning one time. She may be trafficked for labor, such as a nail salon technician, domestic service, or nanny. She may be engaging in prostitution. She may be subjected to sex trafficking against her will by a violent pimp or gang. The vast majority of women trafficked for the purposes of prostitution report having been in healthcare settings while being trafficked. During your intake interview, make sure you have some time alone with your client. It's important to maintain and respect her autonomy throughout the conversation. Never ask questions related to safety or those that would draw out a possible trafficking situation in the presence of anyone else. This is for the safety of everyone involved, you, the staff and volunteers, and your clients. Remember, many traffickers do not see their victims as people worthy of rights. They are merely valuable commodities. As much as possible, use open-ended questions during the intake process. Likely, your current intake interview questions already include many that can be used to uncover potential trafficking. Once you've identified possible indicators of trafficking, be sure to ask questions in a conversational manner while carefully taking note of the clarity and consistency of your client's answers. The following questions may help you identify a potential trafficking victim. If you suspect sex trafficking, you might ask, who is with you? What is your relationship with them? Did someone tell you what to say today? Why? Have you been physically hurt or threatened? How? Do you ever feel pressured to do something you don't want to do? Like what? Do you have any tattoos that I cannot see? What is the significance of that tattoo? How do you spend your free time? Who locks the place where you live? Who lives with you? What's in your pocket right now? For suspected labor trafficking, you might ask, what type of work do you do? What are your work hours? Can you find another job or go to school if you want? What is your routine? Can you come and go as you please? Have you or your family been threatened if you try to leave? Where do you eat and sleep? Who lives with you? When was the last time you ate? What did you have? Do you have any ID? Where do you usually keep it? How do you deal with health problems? Are you being paid? Do you owe money to your employer? How do you get paid for the work that you do? Does anyone keep part of your pay? How do you pay your bills? If she is a minor engaged in commercial sex, she is a trafficking victim. But that doesn't mean you'll be able to rescue her. Stay calm and stick to your center's protocols. If she is pregnant, continue to educate her about the stage of her pregnancy, her baby's development, and the resources that you have to offer. If she is not pregnant, continue to educate her about STIs as you would any other girl, while emphasizing her risks are compounded. Explain that you are a mandatory reporter and let her know who you will be reporting to and that there are services available to help her out of her situation. Module 8 discusses mandatory reporting and other protocols in more detail. All forms of human trafficking involve numerous long-lasting health consequences, both physical and mental, from injury and diseases to mental ill health and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Sex trafficking is a severe form of trafficking, which may also include pregnancy. Violence is inherent in prostitution. Men who buy girls and women for sex do not see them as people. They are objects to be used for a buyer's personal pleasure. Buyers and pimps don't care if a prostituted person is in pain, and she usually doesn't let them know. Most pimps and some buyers get more violent if she complains. Whether or not she has a pimp, she needs the money, so she suffers in silence, dissociates, and cries later. She may block the pain with drugs because she is conditioned to receive abuse as her norm. Power and control are the primary factors in any trafficking situation. The victim may be carefully groomed over a long period of time to ensure complete loyalty. Sometimes, traffickers use intense violence or captivity, but young, vulnerable girls make compliant victims. They are much easier to control by using manipulation and bonding. Think of Stockholm Syndrome. Victims are relatively easy to manage and less expensive if they are still living at home or are at least willing participants. Victims don't usually know they're victims and may still go to school and attend family events. Traffickers often pose as a friend or boyfriend, helping her get the material things she wants and the emotional things she needs: love, sense of belonging, excitement, adventure, etc. The enticement of nice things and the ever-important human connection we need are strong bonding agents at first, but they are the bait on the hook. Trauma bonding is a complex structure of neurochemical, emotional, and mental connections. These connections develop either during intense events or over time and involve dramatic episodes like abuse, whether physical, mental, or emotional. In a trafficking situation, a trauma bond may develop when one or more of the participants experiences an intense episode of drama. For example, if a pimp was arrested or threatened with violence, the exploited victim may have sympathy and become even more loyal to their abuser. If the victim is violently raped by a buyer, the trafficker may console her and assure her it won't happen again, even though he does nothing to protect her and neither retaliates nor reports the assault. This conditioning may happen repeatedly. In this way, it is similar to the cycle of domestic violence. Let's take a quick look at the cycle of domestic abuse. The beginning, a whirlwind of romance, with gifts and affection, a rapid escalation of intimacy, with a sudden, unexpected, violent outburst. The aftermath, excuses, blame, and gaslighting, then reconciliation. A honeymoon period, return to normalcy, like nothing bad ever happened. Then it ramps up, stressors build, the abuser gets angry, the victim tries to keep the peace. And the boiling point, communications break down, the abuser gets broody, threats intensify, and again violence, berating, beatings, rape, or punishment, like loss of privileges, revocation of food and water. Then the cycle goes round and round. Sex trafficking is domestic abuse on steroids. Victims seldom know they're victims. Their world of trauma and violence may have started in early childhood, or it may have been a process, like the proverbial frog in the pot coming to a slow boil. Regardless of the progression, what we would consider abuse is their normal. As you minister to her, remember that she may not know any other way of life. She may be so conditioned that she can no longer see her way out, whether labor or sex trafficking. Victims are told that they are the ones who will be prosecuted and jailed. Their traffickers continuously tell them there is no help for them. You can change that. Thank you for looking at this difficult topic. What's next? After you complete the quiz on the next screen, go to the knowledge base in the course room and review the following materials.